And the trick is to keep it balanced. Imagine this is full of water, and this is how you fetched water for the kitchen, for either laundry or cooking.
Would you go to a river or the well?
River or well, whichever's closer.
You would like being an innkeeper's son?
Maybe.
Well, maybe. Right now we're going to the kitchen. This is the area where I usually talk a bit about the chores. For example, this is Sarah Patterson's kitchen. Sarah Patterson is probably waking her family up, and she is getting to work here at 4 a.m.
Ooh, 4 a.m.
Can you imagine having to get up at 4 a.m. every day? Sarah Patterson would start in this kitchen. This is where she is probably warming up her brick oven first thing.
I know, it's amazing, right?
Warming this brick oven. This is where she's baking and preparing her bread every day for her family and guests.
Oh, because she doesn't have to just make food for her family, it's for every person.
Exactly.
This is why her kitchen's going to be a lot bigger than a lot of women would have had in 1796. And not just preparing food, she's also preserving food here. Because don't forget, it's also a farm. We are growing a lot of corn, beans, squash. There's beans in the pods. We're going to have a fruit and vegetable garden. And all of this we have to preserve and save for the winter.
This is heavy.
That's how you crush it.
This cruncher, just crunch it.
Make cornmeal.
Go ahead and give that a try. And that's how you make cornmeal by hand.
Oh, and then
In fact, there's even a song about this.
if you add water, doesn't it make like a dough? Kind of?
That's pretty much actually one of our simple recipes to make called Johnny Cakes.
Oh.
Yeah, you can sit there, that's just fine.
Is this sugar?
This is more sugar.
Oh, this is how you make
Now the
cinnamon.
cornmeal, like I was saying, there's actually a song about making the cornmeal. You ever know what the song is?
No.
Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. Jimmy crack corn and I don't care. You ever heard that song before?
I've heard
I
that.
don't think I have.
Yeah, and again, the whole trick is if you do this right, listen very carefully, you can hear the corn cracking while doing it.
See how he's cracking the corn?
Eventually you work it.
This is brown sugar.
After it's ground for a bit,
How do they make brown sugar?
after it's ground for a bit, you can be sifted.
Yeah,
You keep grinding
cornmeal.
it until you get nice fine cornmeal. Now the brown sugar, we didn't really make that around here. Sugar for us was sort of an expensive treat, but we had ways of making our own around here. It's just not going to be the kind of sugar you expect. This is the kind of sugar you're used to, right?
Yeah.
Just not in a big cake like this. This is white sugar. This is probably, for most families, this is all the white sugar you're going to have for an entire month.
Oh, wow.
Can
So
we
this
not
is
live with
very,
that?
this is very expensive. We're saving this for special occasions,
This one's
baking.
smaller.
This one is a brown sugar. Believe it or not, you actually make white sugar from brown sugar.
Oh.
And the way that works is when you cook down a plant called sugar cane. Have you heard of sugar cane before? You cook it down and you get almost a syrup. That syrup is set in school, and that's where the brown sugar comes from. But there's a process where you cook it down and you separate the sugar from what's called molasses.
Oh.
And the molasses is separated, and that's where we get the white sugar.
But if you add,
Now that molasses is also kind of sweet, and we'll sometimes use that as a sweetener.
yeah. Is that another dust striker, that bigger version?
That actually can be used as a duster. We also sometimes use it to fan the fire.
That's an evil wing.
This is actually a turkey wing. Wanna go ahead and hold that and look at it?
So is that more tobacco thing?
That is more tobacco drying. As I said, this is going to be a possible place for food preservation, so there might be tobacco hanging here. There might be sliced fruits and vegetables also hanging to dry, as you can tell by these apple slices.
Are they real?
These are real apple slices.
Wow. And they're never gonna go bad?
Well, eventually they're going to, but they're going to be dry, so they're going to at least last through the winter. We want a nice apple pie. All we gotta do is take the dried apple, let them soak in water for a little while, and sugar. This is a type of sugar known as maple sugar.
Oh, maple.
You could make this just like you make maple syrup. You know how maple syrup is made, don't you?
Yeah. collect it from the tree.
Collect the tree sap and you cook it and you cook it and you cook it, and eventually the tree sap becomes maple syrup. But if you keep cooking the maple syrup, it eventually turns into a hard sugar that you can set into a block.
That's great. What's this?
That is something very special we use in here because of all that food we have in here drying and being preserved. We sometimes run into a little problem, and that's going to be keeping these out of the kitchen. This is our 1796 mousetrap.
Wow.
How did it work? Is that real mouse?
Well, this is a little toy
Soft.
mouse like you give your cat.
So
It's going to be balanced like that. If you look at it inside, basically what it is a little lever with a pressure plate. You balance the heavy block on the lever,
and when they jump on
and when they hop in there trying to get whatever's in there,
Smush.
well, actually it's usually not heavy enough to smush them. It's usually just going to hold them in place.
Ah.
And again, first thing in the morning, it's going to be usually the job of the youngest boy in the house. Pick these
That
up.
falls upon you again, buddy.
And mice don't bother me.
You could do mice.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another unique thing. We have something unusual. Why would we have a bed in the kitchen? Does anyone know? Why would there be a bed in the kitchen?
I don't know. In case she gets tired.
Well, she could have laid down on it. Well, actually, we have a special name for it. We usually call it the sick man's bed.
Oh, so she could make medicine for them to give to them.
The idea is if you were sick, you would come down and you would lay on this bed in the kitchen. This way, you could be in the warmest room in the house.
Oh, so big fire.
And this way, Sarah could be over here, still cooking, and still be able to keep an eye on you. No, don't bend your knees, bend with your back, actually.
Bend forward.
Bend forward, like you got a hunch.
Down.
Hunch back, there you go. Now you can either hold the rope with your hands, or you can hold up here. And the trick is to keep it balanced. Imagine this is full of water, and this is how you fetch water for the kitchen, for either laundry or cooking.
Would you go to a river or the well?
River or well, whichever's closer.
I've tried one before, so
Anyone else want to give it a try?
I'll try. It wouldn't. It feels like it's not that hard, but if you do it more than once a day for every day.
These small buckets, if
Cameron, don't open those.
if your mother's
Don't open
cooking
those.
and it's laundry day, you could have been doing this up to 20 times a day.
Yeah.
Wow. You get super strong.
Yeah.
What do you think, Miss Kinley? Heavy, yes.
Well, you'll probably be glad to know this was usually a boy's chore. But again, sometimes if the boys are busy, does that mean they have to do this sometimes?
Are these wood-crafted buckets?
Yes, they are. Things like butters and cheese, but really anything valuable. In this desk, Benjamin would have been keeping the inn's money. These doors would be kept locked. One of Benjamin's jobs, other than being innkeeper, he was also a fur trader.
Is that?
This is beaver.
Yeah. I thought. What is this one?
That is rabbit.
Oh. I like the rabbit.
It would be unusual for wealthy people to have the beaver skin coat and have the... This is real.
Didn't beavers almost go extinct because of that?
Yes, they did. They almost went extinct, especially in this area. It actually was so bad to this day. Beavers around here still aren't as big as they used to be. There are beavers, when they first came to this area, that could have been as large as 80 pounds.
Wow.
So basically, imagine a beaver about the size of a Doberman.
Wow.
So what is this big bowl for?
That is, well, as I said, this is going to be where not just for keeping money, but also butters and cheeses. And large bowls like this, Sarah might have had for bringing out the bread in the morning. Just for presentation, or occasionally, again, sometimes she had to cook for almost 30, sometimes 60 people if there's a big event going on. So she needed big bowls like this for mixing and preparing.
Is
Wow.
this chalkboard here so they could calculate the money?
That's right. Again, this is where anything valuable is going to be kept.
Yeah.
This is our dining room, and of course you all know what a dining room is used for, right? Mhm. This is a special kind
Ray,
of
can you hold
bench
his
that we
hand
get
for a
back by the
minute?
fire. Nice high back to catch the heat. But if we got a little busy, we can also, you know why we drank the beer? We had a little problem. We didn't know about germs and bacteria in 1796. Did you know that? We didn't know what those were. Because we didn't know what they were, we didn't understand things like having clean water. So when we drink water from the river, if the water wasn't clean, what would happen? That's right. But the beer, the nice part about the beer, you know the first thing you do when you make beer? You boil water.
And boiling gives it steroids.
That's right. So we accidentally made the water safer to drink. So the water we couldn't always trust. The beer, as long as we didn't drink too much, not tea.
Ah.
Oh, tea bag.
This is a tea block. And what it is basically they have taken tea leaves, they have shredded them, pressed them into a mold tight, and left it to dry.
So would they put the whole thing in and boil it, or would they break it?
Well, you would have a knife. These large pieces like this, it was actually scored, it looks like a chocolate bar,
So you
doesn't
could
it?
break it?
So you could break off your own small section, you could buy your own small section. And when you're ready for a hot cup of tea, you could take a knife and just scrape the block. Scrape how much tea you wanted into your hot water. That's how you get a cup of tea.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
That is
It
neat.
wasn't always the tastiest, but it made for a nice strong cup of tea, and it was probably safer than the water.
Yeah.
Are these horns, or are they called gunpowder?
Well, these are empty right now, but yes, that is a powder horn. This would have been for filling and loading the muzzle-loading muskets.
What is this?
That is an oil lamp. The way the oil lamps work is you would have a little bit of liquid oil in here, like olive oil, and you would have a wick, sort of like the wick in a candle. And instead of burning wax, as the wick burns, it's going to burn the oil that's sitting in it.
That's cool.
It's not going to give off as much light as the candle, but it is going to usually burn longer. And it's easy to refill. The downside around here is we don't really have liquid oil around here in 1796. We have things like butter and lard. So not really good for oil candles, but the inn being who it is, a lot of people coming through, we would have had a few of these around just to make for easy, quick light.
Very cool.
Now I'm going to ask one question before we go on to the schoolhouse. And it's going to be, I'm going to point at two things. It's this right here and this right here. What I tell you is these two have the same name, but completely different uses. These are our coal bins, coal boxes. You know what we use these for? Whole coal, in particular the hot red coals. You know the red glowing part of the fire?
Are they to warm beds or no?
Well, this would actually, these fires are not going to be kept burning 24/7. If we did that, we'd be going through a lot of wood, wouldn't we?
So they put the coals in there to keep them safe?
We would have one fire going in the kitchen all the time. That would be called the starter fire. When we wanted to start a fire out here, we could take this, we could scoop those red hot coals out of that fire, bring it out here, build a new bed of red hot coals, and use that to start a new fire.
That's cool.
That is cool.
This is going to be a little different. This is basically,
For light?
well, it's more of a space heater. It's a portable fireplace.
Oh.
You could take those same red hot coals, place them in here, and it's now my portable fireplace. If I'm going into the barn where there's no fireplace, or a small room where it's probably a little chilly and not enough room for a fireplace, I can bring this with me. A lot of people would take these on carriage rides or in the stagecoach, and the inns would recharge them, refill them for free. Some people, once upon a time, actually called them church lanterns, because in the early American churches, those early churches were basically just big unheated barns. So that is a cistern pump. Actually, its proper name would be called a chain pump. And this is going to work different from the pumps. The way this works is basically turning this crank. The water is actually going to follow the chain as it's cranked. Dripping down the chain, following the chain up, and coming out here on the spout.
And then you can fill up what you need.
As we're carrying, that was the closest thing you probably would have had to a backpack for carrying your books. You would have had a simple leather strap to carry it, or you might have put together something like this with some old belts and some scraps of wood.
That's cool.
That's just for our display, so people can see what it is.
Go that way.
You ever seen a horseshoe before? This is what we attach to the horse's foot so he can do his chores.
Did you hear that? The
without hurting
horses!
himself.
Anakin! It's a horseshoe! Look, it touches all the sharp things.
And they can look very different. They can be small like that. That's going to be pony-sized.
For a little pony.
We might have something like this.
Oh, ouch.
It's going to be like a football shoe, cleats.
So So
This
they
is going to
fall?
be this is going to be nice, especially if the horse is going to do a lot of running in sandy soil.
Cool.
And even something like this. This is a rubber horseshoe.
Ah,
This was actually made for horses that are going out onto paved roads, like cement or
So it doesn't
blacktop.
scratch it?
Well, partly there's two reasons. One, it might dig up the road, and two, horses are actually fairly heavy, and horseshoes, if you feel that, are actually kind of smooth. So horses are heavy, this is kind of smooth, the road's kind of smooth. What do you think can happen sometimes?
slip, slip.
That's right. It's going to be like if going out it's like you're wearing socks on a hardwood floor.
Oh.
And unlike when we fall down, if the horse falls down, they have trouble getting up sometimes.
Yeah.
Over here's the firebox. This is where
Anvil.
this is where the blacksmith is working the bellows, building the fire,
That's cool.
warming his pieces,
Then hitting them.
and even right down to now you know how the blacksmith works. He heats this metal
Yeah.
until it gets to a particular color, and then
Orange.
each little tap that he gives that metal,
He bends it.
he's bending it. He's slowly changing the shape. It's sort of like when you work with Play-Doh, don't you, or clay? Every time you bend it, twist it, you're changing the shape a little. That's pretty much what the blacksmith's doing with his hammer. Each little tap, when it's
It's
red
just like
hot,
metal.
it's changing the shape. Do you want to go ahead and give that a little tap?
You can go.
Kind of, just give it a little tap, and you can hear the ringing sound.
They have all shapes of hammers and stuff.
Different shapes of hammer. Again, the blacksmith's going to know
What was
exactly what hammer.
this part for?
Well, that's actually going to be for making curve shapes. See that little loop right here?
Yeah.
You would base it on the horn, and you would just sort of tap, 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 tap until you got the curve that you wanted.
Then would you snap it off if
Well,
you
you
were
could-
making a nail? Or
Well, if you're snapping it off, you might have. And actually, with a nail, probably what you're going to do is you're going to be more extracting it. The interesting thing about these nails is they're one of the easiest things to make, but also one of the most expensive things. Because when you need one nail, you're probably going to need a lot of them.
Yeah.
And nails would be so expensive. The one expensive part of building a house, so expensive that they actually had to make a law in several states telling people not to burn their houses down.
Oh, wow.
Because when they would move to a new house, people would actually try to burn their houses down just to collect the nails and save them.
Wow.
That does not sound
Because again, even though they're the easiest thing to make, when you have to make a lot of them, this becomes expensive. It's actually for making these.
wheels.
What?
Now, basically, the way these work is you would have this mounted on the wheel,
I know.
clamped down. And now the blacksmith can take his metal strips, bend them on that behind your mother right there. That's called the crimper. That would bend the steel, and now he can bring it over here and he can attach it to the wheel. Later on, they would use these for Model Ts, and they would actually have this and a special device that would stretch the rubber so they could actually attach the rubber wheel.
So that's kind of like a tire balancer today?
Pretty much, yes, very similar to it.
Pretty smart.
Sound less of a balancer and more what they use to actually assemble the tires.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.